Pregnant wife sends cheating millionaire husband to prison, then finds happiness with a rich CEO. Welcome everyone to this intense, pulse-pounding tale where secrets lie hidden beneath glossy mansions and polished smiles. Prepare to be swept into a whirlwind of betrayal, heartbreak, triumph, and ultimate justice. The glamorous world of a wealthy power couple will shatter before your eyes as dark truths come to light and an unexpected twist catapults a pregnant wife onto a path of righteous revenge. In the shadows of deception, an unlikely savior emerges, proving that hope can come from the most surprising corners. You won't believe how this story unfolds. So sit tight and brace yourself for one of the most dramatic journeys you've ever heard. Claudia Cartwright first met her future husband, James "Jamie" Winston, at an event brimming with socialites, business tycoons, and celebrities. The fundraiser was hosted at the prestigious Hilton Los Angeles in Beverly Hills. Claudia was a bright-eyed graduate student researching philanthropic endeavors, while Jamie was a young but wildly successful entrepreneur who'd already made his first million by the tender age of 25. From the moment their eyes locked across that gilded ballroom, Claudia felt an electrifying jolt rush through her veins, a sensation that was as thrilling as it was intimidating. The evening's purpose had been noble, raising money for a children's hospital in need of upgraded cancer wards, but Claudia could scarcely concentrate on the heartfelt cause. Jamie took every opportunity to sidle up to her, striking conversation in his smooth baritone voice. Despite the swirling spectacle around them, celebrities exchanging fake kisses on cheeks, old friends toasting with expensive champagne, luscious floral arrangements perfuming the air, she found it impossible to tear her gaze away from Jamie's intense, dark eyes. He had a magnetism that promised both danger and excitement. At first, Claudia wondered if he was just another superficial figure from the endless stream of LA high society men. Yet Jamie surprised her with his genuine interest in her research, asking detailed questions about the state of pediatric care and the ways philanthropic work could be structured to create long-lasting impact. He even pulled her aside, away from the crowd, to learn more about her personal motivations, how she'd watched her cousin suffer from cancer, how she'd resolved to make a difference in that realm. The more they spoke, the more she felt a nascent trust blossoming between them. By the end of that evening, Jamie had slipped his business card into her hand with a casual grin. The next day, Claudia received a bouquet of daisies, her favorite flowers, alongside a handwritten note. "I can't wait to continue our conversation, Jamie." She'd never encountered someone so seemingly sincere and wealthy who bothered to learn her preferences so quickly. It set her heart racing and, in many ways, sealed her fate. The days morphed into weeks as Jamie whisked Claudia into his opulent world. Their relationship escalated at lightning speed, private dinners at exclusive restaurants, late-night conversations over luxurious glasses of red wine, spontaneous weekend getaways to Napa Valley. For a young woman who had always been careful and methodical, Claudia found herself enthralled by Jamie's spontaneity and lavish spirit. Her parents were delighted that she had found someone who understood her passion for charity work, while her friends teased her mercilessly for landing a millionaire. But behind the jokes, Claudia's loved ones recognized how happy Jamie made her. In her eyes, he was a man who had not only the ambition to move mountains, but also the heart to heal the world. One starry night, atop a high-rise rooftop bar, with a sprawling view of Los Angeles glittering below them, Jamie asked Claudia to marry him. It was barely 6 months after they first met. Surrounded by a small string quartet he had hired, he went down on one knee, the city lights reflecting like diamonds in his eyes. Claudia recalled the dizzying swirl of sensations, excitement, a flutter of nervousness, a sense that her life was about to be catapulted catapulted into a brand new chapter. She said yes with tears streaming down her cheeks, believing wholeheartedly that she was at the start of her very own fairy tale. Yet, like any fairy tale that eventually sours, the darkness lurking beyond the glow of their whirlwind romance would soon rear its head and test Claudia in ways she never could have imagined. The first hints that something was amiss came in whispers. One day, not long after they were married in a grand ceremony at a lavish vineyard in Santa Barbara, Claudia stumbled across an odd expense. It was a receipt for a weekend stay at a luxurious Malibu beach house. On paper, it seemed harmless. Jamie was a wealthy man who often indulged in real estate visits and last-minute retreats. But something about the date left her unsettled. It overlapped with a period he'd claimed to be on a business trip in New York. Initially, she brushed aside her concerns, reminding herself that Jamie was a busy entrepreneur who traveled frequently. She told herself there must have been a mix-up in scheduling, or perhaps the property was used for meetings. Still, the image gnawed at her. Why hadn't he mentioned being in Malibu? Why say he was going to New York? When pressed, Jamie dismissed her questions with a breezy laugh, attributing it to an unplanned pit stop while en route to finalizing some real estate deals. He was so charming, so disarming, that Claudia allowed the explanation to settle her doubts. But then, there were more signs, tiny details, that pricked her mind like cactus needles. Some nights, Jamie would come home far later than usual, reeking of expensive cologne that wasn't his usual brand. Other times, he'd dash out the door in the morning, brushing off breakfast, and wouldn't resurface until the following day. He was always apologetic, always bearing lavish gifts and apologies for his unpredictable scheduled diamond earrings. One day, a brand new electric car the next. Claudia tried to be understanding. She was well aware of the demands placed on a successful entrepreneur. She reasoned that if she wanted to keep building her philanthropic projects and eventually start a family, she would have to endure some level of unpredictability. This was her choice, to marry a man with colossal dreams that often translated into a chaotic lifestyle. Yet, the cracks in their paradise grew more pronounced. On one occasion, a friend who worked in the same social circles quietly warned her that Jamie had been spotted at a high-end lounge, looking a bit too comfortable with a flirtatious model. Claudia, wounded, confronted him that evening. Jamie brushed off the accusation with a gentle, coaxing smile. "I was there with a client," he claimed. "We closed a deal, and she was just someone else at our table. Rumors fly faster than birds around here. You know that." He kissed Claudia's forehead, led her to their spacious balcony, and showed her the LA skyline, as if it was some trophy he'd acquired for her. "You're the only one I love," he whispered, and for a moment she believed him. But a nagging sense of dread crept deeper into her heart. At the time, Claudia also discovered she was pregnant. The joy that coursed through her overshadowed her suspicions. She imagined them nurturing a child together. Jamie might scale back his travels to spend time with their baby, or so she hoped. Her maternal instincts flared to life, urging her to focus on positivity, to protect her stress levels for the sake of their unborn child. And so the subtle cracks, the swirling doubts, were temporarily plastered over by the news of an impending child, a new promise that perhaps everything would be okay. But life has a way of ensuring that hidden truths don't remain buried for long. The day that truth erupted into the open would be the day Claudia realized just how deep Jamie's betrayal ran and how dangerous he could be when cornered. It happened on a rainy Tuesday, an anomaly in sunny Los Angeles weather. Claudia was out running errands, her pregnant belly just beginning to show beneath a warm cardigan. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement each time she thought about the baby. After picking up vitamins at the local pharmacy, she decided to surprise Jamie at his office with a home-cooked lunch, one of her mother's old recipes, a comforting chicken casserole. She was tired of waiting endless hours for him at home. Maybe spending a bit more time in his sphere would help solidify their bond again. As she arrived at the modern high-rise that housed Jamie's company, Winston Enterprises, she noted how the glass exterior reflected the somber sky. Usually, a friendly receptionist welcomed her with a warm smile, but that day there was no one at the front desk. Confused, she ventured further into the corridors, calling out politely for assistance. The office seemed surprisingly empty. Then she noticed a faint light emanating from one of the executive meeting rooms. Curious, she approached the partially open door. Inside, she heard hushed voices, Jamie's voice, definitely, and someone else's, distinctly feminine. Pausing, she listened, heart pounding, as he murmured phrases that struck her like a punch to the gut. "You know I hate lying to her, she's pregnant. For God's sake. But this child changes nothing between us. I'm just waiting for the right moment. Once things settle, we can continue where we left off. Patience. If Claudia finds out, I'll handle it." Claudia's stomach twisted into knots. Her mind raced, refusing to believe what she was hearing. Carefully, she peeked inside, pressing her eye against the gap in the door. There she saw Jamie leaning over a sleek desk, his arm draped around a tall, blonde woman with striking features. She had her hand curled around the collar of his shirt, pulling him close, wearing a smug smile like she owned him. Claudia's world imploded. The stress of the moment caused her hands to tremble, nearly dropping the container of casserole. She wanted to burst in, to shout, to rage at them, but fear and heartbreak held her back. Instead, she retreated, leaving the building with tears clouding her vision, shoulders hunched, as if a physical weight pressed down on her. She spent the afternoon driving aimlessly through the city, her mind whirling with questions. Who was the other woman? How long had this been going on? And what did he mean by handle it if Claudia finds out? In her most cynical nightmares, she never imagined Jamie would maintain such a blatant affair while she carried his unborn child. Eventually, she pulled over at a roadside cafe, the sign illuminated by neon lights that blurred through her tears. She couldn't stomach food, but she forced herself to sip a chamomile tea, hoping to soothe her jangled nerves for the baby's sake. In those moments, her fury mingled with heartbreak, forging a resolve that glimmered like steel under the raw ache. If Jamie thought she would be just another docile wife, complicit in his lies, he was dangerously mistaken. Claudia chose not to confront Jamie immediately. She suspected that if he could lie so effortlessly about his whereabouts, there might be far more skeletons in his closet. For the sake of her unborn child, she needed to know exactly what she was up against before deciding her next move. The following weeks were excruciating. Claudia continued to play the role of a loving wife, while inwardly she was consumed by the desire to uncover every facet of Jamie's secrets. She began to discreetly follow Jamie's schedule, using the Find My Phone feature they had initially set up in more innocent times. It led her to suspicious rendezvous spots across the city, from luxury spas to dimly lit lounges. Each location told a piece of the story: a midday fling here, a hush-hush meeting there. One afternoon, she discovered an appointment in Jamie's calendar titled Beach Meeting, referencing the very same Malibu property that had first set her suspicions alight. Determined, she drove out to Malibu and parked at a discreet distance. She waited in the driver's seat of her modest SUV, heart hammering as a torrential wave of conflicting emotions threatened to overwhelm her. After nearly an hour, a flashy sports car rolled down the driveway, and out stepped Jamie, accompanied by the same blonde woman Claudia had seen before. Unable to quell her boiling rage, she grabbed a hat and oversized sunglasses, slipped out of her vehicle, and stealthily followed them to the beach house deck. Through a crack between the glass panels, she witnessed them entwined in a sensual embrace. Their conversation, once again, struck her like lightning, "When is your next business trip out of town?" the woman asked. "Soon. I'll say I have to fly to the East Coast again," Jamie replied in a low voice. "But I'll be here with you instead. I just need to keep up appearances until the baby arrives. After that, I'll figure out how to keep Claudia quiet and out of the picture." The woman's laugh sent shivers down Claudia's spine. "Such a gentleman," she teased. "But don't get too cocky. The moment she suspects something serious, she might become a problem." Jamie smirked. "She won't. Claudia's too naive, too wrapped up in her philanthropic fantasies to suspect a thing. Besides, even if she did, it wouldn't matter. I have the power to make sure any problem vanishes." Claudia's blood ran cold. It was one thing to suspect a romantic betrayal. It was another to witness Jamie's callous disregard for her well-being and that of their unborn child. She had no illusions now. This man she loved was manipulative, selfish, and potentially dangerous. She crept back to her car, numbness overtaking her entire body. If he was so brazen about an affair and so dismissive about her existence, what else was he hiding? In the ensuing days, Claudia's suspicion grew beyond personal betrayal. That mention of keeping her quiet and making problems vanish hinted at a darker side to Jamie's business dealings. Perhaps it was the adrenaline from heartbreak that kept her awake night after night, combing through old documents, searching for any financial irregularities. The truth slowly crystallized. Jamie was hiding far more than an extramarital affair. Examining credit card statements, bank transactions, and corporate reports, Claudia began to notice patterns: money transferring in and out of shell companies, real estate transactions that never materialized, charitable donations that existed only on paper. She recognized the stench of potential fraud, a suspicion that turned her stomach. On a hunch, she explored Winston Enterprises' financial reports. Some columns simply didn't add up. Funds earmarked for philanthropic projects through the Winston Foundation, which she'd helped promote, appeared to vanish into suspicious accounts. One evening, she discovered a reference to a shady offshore account, masked under a series of shell corporations. She cross-referenced these accounts with the times Jamie had claimed to be away on business. The puzzle pieces fell into place. Jamie was funneling large sums of money to obscure locations. He wasn't the philanthropic golden boy the world believed. He was siphoning donations to fund his extravagant lifestyle and covering his tracks with bogus business deals. As horrifying as it was, this revelation filled Claudia with a grim sense of purpose. If Jamie was capable of defrauding investors, non-profits, and donors, she wondered how many people had suffered under his web of lies. She pictured the children's hospital they had once passionately supported. How much money had actually reached them? Had all those pledges and philanthropic galas been nothing more than a front? Still, she felt paralyzed by uncertainty. Exposing Jamie meant stepping into a legal battlefield she was ill-prepared for. Moreover, she worried about the blowback on her unborn child. Yet she also knew her conscience would never allow her to stay silent. The final straw came when she overheard Jamie on a phone call in which he threatened a former associate who dared to question the finances. "You think you can accuse me of fraud? I'll bury you," Jamie snarled into the phone. "My lawyers will ruin your life before you can blink. I've got the best in the city. Don't test me." Claudia realized then that Jamie was not only cheating on her, he was also a crook using intimidation to maintain his empire. Without doubt, if she tried to confront him directly, he might threaten her safety or that of their child. She had to be strategic, gathering irrefutable evidence before making her move. Desperate for guidance, Claudia turned to someone she trusted implicitly, her longtime friend, Serena Diaz, an investigative journalist she'd met back in college. Serena was known for her dogged persistence in uncovering truth and a strong moral compass. If anyone could help navigate this labyrinth of deceit, it was her. They met late one night at an out-of-the-way diner in downtown Los Angeles. Rain pelted the pavement outside as neon signs buzzed overhead. Claudia sipped hot chocolate, her hands trembling as she recounted everything she'd discovered the affair. The mysterious financial transactions, the conversation at the beach house, Jamie's apparent threats. Serena listened intently, her sharp gaze unwavering. Occasionally, she jotted down notes on a worn leather-bound notebook. After Claudia finished, Serena leaned forward, speaking in a hushed tone. "Claudia, you're in deep waters. If your husband is laundering money or committing fraud and you expose him, he won't take it lightly. But if you have evidence, you might be able to approach authorities, people who can protect you and your unborn child." Claudia exhaled shakily. "I'm scared, Serena. He has powerful connections. He brags about controlling politicians, law enforcement, the works. I worry he's not bluffing." Serena laid a comforting hand on Claudia's. "You're right to be cautious, but you can't let fear paralyze you. Let me make some calls, check into his finances. In the meantime, keep collecting everything you can. We'll need a solid case before we even think about going to the authorities." That night, Serena promised to discreetly use her investigative resources. She had contacts within regulatory agencies, lawyers who specialized in white-collar crimes, and even law enforcement officers who owed her favors. Claudia left the diner feeling a mixture of terror and hope. Knowing she wasn't alone in this battle gave her the strength to keep going. Behind closed doors, in the mansion she once considered her dream home, Claudia acted as though nothing was wrong. She continued to indulge Jamie's schedules, his late-night outings, and his half-hearted excuses. In front of him, she forced a smile. Behind his back, she and Serena worked tirelessly, combing through digital footprints, forging alliances, and documenting every piece of evidence they could find. The unborn child became her greatest source of motivation. Each kick, each flutter in her belly, reminded Claudia that she wasn't just fighting for her own future, she was fighting for the safety and integrity of the tiny life growing within her. Time was running out. Claudia's pregnancy advanced steadily, and with each passing week, her baby bump became more pronounced. Jamie, forever oblivious to her investigations, grew more brazen in his affairs, often not returning home until dawn. The nights Claudia spent alone in their massive bedroom, tears slipping down her cheeks, fueled a mounting determination. She knew she had to act before the baby arrived. Serena's research revealed that multiple complaints had been filed against Winston Enterprises for misappropriation of funds, but each complainant had mysteriously withdrawn their claim or vanished after facing legal threats. The puzzle was clear. Jamie wielded intimidation like a weapon, burying lawsuits before they could gain traction. But now, with Claudia's insider knowledge and trove of paperwork, they had a chance to build an airtight case. Serena connected Claudia with a legal team specializing in white-collar crimes. At first, the lawyers hesitated, worried about the blowback of going after a powerful figure like Jamie Winston. But once they saw the evidence documents cross-referencing shell companies, falsified charitable donations, testimonies from staff members who had confided in Claudia, they realized the potential magnitude of the case. With the right approach, they could bring Jamie to justice. To ensure her safety, Claudia moved quickly. She started discreetly transferring her personal assets out of joint accounts to protect herself financially. She also rented a small, secure apartment in a lesser-known neighborhood under an alias, preparing for the possibility she might need to hide once the storm broke. The only individuals who knew about this secret apartment were Serena and her legal team. But the hardest part remained: confronting Jamie, or at least ensuring he faced the full extent of the law. Each time she watched him walk through the door, exuding confidence as he chatted casually about his day, she felt waves of revulsion for the stranger her husband had become. Yet she kept the mask firmly in place, refusing to tip him off. Then came the tipping point, a single phone call that thrust everything into motion. Late one evening, while Jamie was out, Claudia received a frenzied call from a junior accountant at Winston Enterprises. A timid man named Marcus Green, who had grown alarmed by the discrepancies. Marcus confessed he was aware of a major transaction set to occur in the coming days, tens of millions funneling out of the Winston Foundation's charitable holdings into a private account overseas. It was the smoking gun, the final piece of the puzzle. If they could track this transaction, it would be undeniable proof of fraud. Claudia knew this was it. She rapidly coordinated with Serena and the legal team. They planned to alert the authorities at the precise moment the transaction took place, ensuring it could be traced in real time. With the feds involved, it would be nearly impossible for Jamie to weasel his way out of an immediate investigation. Her heart pounded at the prospect. She knew the risk was immense. Jamie's wrath could be deadly if he discovered her part in the sting. But she also knew she couldn't turn back. The plan was set in motion, with no opportunity for second thoughts. The morning of the planned sting arrived. Claudia awoke early, her stomach swirling with both nausea from pregnancy and sheer terror. She forced down a small breakfast, knowing she would need her strength. When Jamie arose, striding through the hallway in a tailored suit, she feigned a gentle smile, acting as though it was any ordinary day. He bent down to plant a perfunctory kiss on her cheek. "I have a busy day ahead," he mumbled, hardly making eye contact. "Don't wait up. I'll be late." Claudia's heart clenched, but she held her calm. "All right. Take care, Jamie." No sooner had he left than Claudia's phone buzzed with a message from Serena. "It's happening now. Are you ready?" She glanced around their opulent living room, an image of wealth that was about to come crashing down in spectacular fashion. She pressed a trembling hand to her belly, murmuring a silent prayer for safety, and texted back, "Yes, I'm ready." The day crawled by. Claudia paced the house, occasionally answering phone calls from the legal team, from Serena, from the authorities who were monitoring the transaction. She had provided them with every detail necessary to trace the funds in real time, the shell company names, bank account numbers, even the exact minute the transaction was slated to go through. By mid-afternoon, the net began to close. Federal agents armed with warrants converged on Winston Enterprises headquarters. Serena stood by as a silent observer, her press badge granting her limited access to the scene. In the upper floors of the building, Jamie was in a meeting when the doors burst open, revealing stern-faced officers who served him with an arrest warrant on counts of fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. The entire office was thrown into chaos. Employees scrambled, uncertain of what was happening. Marcus Green, the junior accountant, pretended to be surprised, just as they had planned, keeping his involvement hidden for his own protection. Claudia remained at home, tears streaming down her cheeks when she received the message, "He's in custody." She didn't know if she was crying out of relief, shock, or heartbreak. Perhaps all three converged in that single moment of reckoning. She sank onto the leather couch, the baby moving within her, as though sensing the monumental upheaval. But it wasn't over yet. A second text arrived from Serena. "They're bringing him to the station. Please be careful." Claudia grabbed a small suitcase she had prepared earlier, stepping outside into the bright California sunshine. She climbed into her SUV, hands gripping the steering wheel as she drove to the safe apartment. The final confrontation with Jamie would come later, likely in a courtroom or in carefully arranged legal proceedings. Right now, she needed to hide, yet Jamie was not one to give up easily. That evening, from a police holding cell, he made frantic calls to his high-powered lawyers. Bail was set at an astronomical figure, but his fortune and connections allowed him to post it immediately. He was out on bail by the next morning, freed while awaiting the formal charges and trial. Claudia's phone rang incessantly with calls from unknown numbers. She knew they were from Jamie or his lawyers, but she refused to answer. Her fear of retaliation soared, but so did her resolve to see justice done. With Jamie out on bail, Claudia lived in a constant state of anxiety. She stayed in her secret apartment, curtains drawn, rarely venturing outside except for prenatal checkups and covert meetings with Serena or her legal team. Threatening voicemails began to trickle in a familiar deep voice, spitting venom and betrayal. "How dare you set me up?" Jamie raged in one voicemail. "You will regret this." Fear coiled around Claudia's heart like barbed wire, but with each threat, she only grew more convinced she'd made the right choice. The avalanche of evidence was now in the hands of federal prosecutors. The media devoured the scandal, plastering Jamie's face across headlines and prime-time news. Winston Enterprises stocks plummeted, investors fled, and philanthropic foundations distanced themselves from the newly uncovered charity fraudster. He was no longer a golden boy. He was a pariah. Despite his best attempts at damage control, Jamie faced public outrage and a mountain of charges. Yet he continued to fight back through every legal avenue possible. His attorneys tried to smear Claudia, painting her as an unbalanced wife who concocted stories of fraud to seize control of his fortune. They invented rumors that she had been having an affair of her own, that her pregnancy was some twisted trap. Claudia refused to let such lies break her. She continued gathering evidence, determined to demolish each piece of slander. Whenever the pressure felt unbearable, she reminded herself that her unborn child was counting on her. She had to persevere, to show the world that this man had violated the public's trust and that his downfall was entirely of his own making. As the trial date loomed, Claudia's pregnancy reached its final stages. The swirl of media attention around Jamie's case threatened to stress her into premature labor. On her legal team's advice, she took a short trip north, staying in a secluded cabin near Lake Tahoe for a few weeks. There, she found solace in nature, the crisp mountain air, the rustle of pines, the shimmer of the lake under the sun. It was in that retreat that she regrouped her emotions and prepared herself for the legal battle that would define her future. The day of the trial arrived as an unseasonably cold morning in Los Angeles. News vans lined the streets outside the courthouse, eager to capture the downfall of a once celebrated entrepreneur. Claudia, dressed in a modest black dress that hugged her pregnant belly, entered through a side entrance to avoid the paparazzi. Serena stood by her, providing both moral support and journalistic coverage of the case. Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. On one side, Jamie and his fleet of expensive lawyers. On the other, federal prosecutors armed with binders of incriminating documents. Claudia took the witness stand, her pulse racing. She testified for hours, recounting her discovery of Jamie's duplicity and detailing the labyrinth of financial transactions she had uncovered. Jamie's lawyers attempted to discredit her at every turn, suggesting she was simply a scorned wife looking for revenge. But the prosecutors responded with overwhelming evidence, bank statements, wire transfers, corroborating testimonies from former employees. Marcus Green also took the stand, under the protection of whistleblower statutes, verifying that Winston Enterprises had systematically diverted charitable funds into offshore accounts. By the trial's third day, the defense began to crumble. In desperation, Jamie's lawyers argued that Winston Enterprises' finances were complicated, that no direct line of fraud could be established. But prosecutors displayed transaction histories, complete with timestamps and the benefactor's original intentions. Proving funds for charitable causes had ended up in Jamie's private accounts. Each exhibit was another nail in the coffin of his defense. When Jamie finally took the stand, he attempted to paint himself as a visionary entrepreneur who occasionally used creative accounting for the greater good. He tried to spin a tale of philanthropic ambition gone awry, claiming ignorance of the finer details. The jury, however, was largely unmoved by his charisma. Facts overshadowed theatrics in that courtroom, and Jamie's credibility evaporated like morning dew. After weeks of testimony, closing arguments drew near. Claudia sat in the gallery, biting her lip, her hands folded over her belly. The baby's due date was alarmingly close. She prayed she wouldn't go into labor before the verdict. And then the final moment arrived. The jury filed back into the courtroom, somber expressions etched on their faces. The foreperson rose and announced the verdict, guilty on multiple counts of fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. Jamie's face twisted into a mask of shock and fury. His lawyers were quick to request bail pending appeal, but the judge deemed him a flight risk, ordering him to be taken into custody immediately. As officers approached to handcuff him, Jamie caught Claudia's eye. Hatred blazed in his expression, and for a moment she felt a chilling pang of fear. Then she looked away, choosing instead to cling to the sense of relief that was beginning to flood her body. Mere days after the verdict, Claudia went into labor. She was alone in her apartment, half asleep when the contractions began. Terror mingled with exhilaration as each contraction grew more intense. Frantically, she called Serena, who rushed to her side, helping her into the car and speeding to the hospital through late-night traffic. The labor was grueling, the pain stabbing through Claudia's midsection with an intensity she couldn't have imagined. Memories of Jamie flickered through her mind of happier times, of that golden night he proposed, of the heartbreak that followed. Tears stung her eyes, but she also felt an unshakable sense of power surging within her. She would bring this child into the world free from deceit, free from the manipulative hold of a disgraced father. Hours later, as dawn broke over the city, Claudia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. The moment she held her daughter, a flood of love overwhelmed her. The baby's tiny hands and soft cries reminded Claudia of the hope she had clung to through every betrayal. Serena wept alongside her, capturing the moment in photographs she would later share with Claudia in a private album. When hospital staff asked about the father, Claudia felt a painful twinge, but calmly explained that the father would not be present. His name was on the birth certificate, of course, but physically he was locked away, awaiting sentencing in a federal facility. It wasn't how she had envisioned the start of her motherhood journey, but she embraced the reality. This baby was hers to protect and cherish. For those brief hospital days, Claudia savored a sense of triumph and serenity. She had survived heartbreak, legal battles, and threats. Now, cradling her newborn, she saw the path to a fresh start, one free from the illusions of wealth and the weight of secrets. Though Jamie had been found guilty, the legal proceedings were not fully over. He still awaited a formal sentencing hearing, and his defense team continued to lob appeals in a desperate bid to lessen his punishment. Claudia, now a single mother, stood firm against the notion of any leniency. She was prepared to submit an impact statement, detailing how his crimes had not only violated public trust, but also destroyed her marriage and put her at risk. On the day of sentencing, Claudia arrived at the federal courthouse, daughter in her arms. She wore a crisp blazer, projecting confidence despite the swarm of reporters. Serena walked beside her, capturing footage for a documentary she planned to produce on white-collar crime and whistleblower stories. They entered the courtroom, where Jamie stood before the judge in handcuffs, wearing a wrinkled prison jumpsuit. Though physically thinner and visibly strained, Jamie's arrogance still showed in the way he held his chin up. At first, he refused to make eye contact with Claudia, but as she took the podium for her impact statement, holding their infant daughter in her arms, he finally turned his gaze upon them. Her voice trembled slightly but remained clear. "Your Honor, Jamie Winston stole money from people who trusted him. He jeopardized charities meant to help vulnerable children. He manipulated and endangered me, the mother of his own child. I stand here not out of vengeance, but out of a desire for justice and closure. May this court's sentence reflect the seriousness of his actions." When it was Jamie's turn to speak, he offered hollow apologies, claiming remorse. But no one in the room seemed moved. The judge handed down a lengthy prison sentence, citing the brazen nature of his crimes. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Jamie's face contorted in rage and disbelief as he was led away. Outside, cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. Claudia shielded her daughter from the frenzy, refusing to provide any more statements beyond what she had shared in court. With Jamie finally sentenced, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The future, though uncertain, seemed infinitely brighter. In the months following Jamie's imprisonment, Claudia focused on rebuilding her life. She'd negotiated a divorce settlement that required no ongoing spousal support from Jamie. She wanted nothing more to do with his tainted fortune. Instead, she relied on the savings she'd stashed away and the modest trust she had established from her philanthropic work. She found a small, comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood, outfitting the nursery with pastel colors and second-hand furniture. It wasn't the opulence she once lived in, but she found more peace within those cozy walls than she ever had in that grand mansion. To sustain herself and her daughter, Claudia resumed her philanthropic pursuits, leveraging her background to consult for non-profit organizations. Her experience with Winston Enterprises ironically became a cautionary tale. She taught charities how to spot red flags in donations and to ensure transparency in their financial dealings. Word of her expertise spread, and soon she was juggling multiple clients. During one such consulting project, she was introduced to Lincoln Link Harrington, a renowned CEO in the tech industry. He ran Harrington Innovations, a company famous for pioneering groundbreaking medical device technology. Their first meeting took place at a conference addressing modern funding solutions for public health initiatives, a cause close to Claudia's heart. She arrived wearing a simple grey suit, exhausted from a night of tending to her baby, but determined to put on a professional demeanor. The moment Link took the stage, speaking passionately about how technology could revolutionize healthcare in underserved communities, Claudia felt a spark of recognition. There was sincerity in his words, a far cry from Jamie's theatrics. He presented actual prototypes of portable medical machines, explained the affordability model, and engaged in dialogues about building trust in communities. Every word rang with authenticity. After the presentation, they crossed paths near the refreshment table. Link recognized Claudia's name from the schedule she was set to speak about accountability and oversight for large donations. He offered a friendly handshake. Up close, she noticed streaks of grey in his neatly styled hair, which made him look both distinguished and approachable. "I'm a big supporter of philanthropic transparency," Link said. "I've heard your story. You've been through a lot, but you turned it into a teaching moment for the charitable world. That's admirable." Claudia felt a twinge of embarrassment, knowing her personal tribulations had become somewhat public. But Link's gaze held no pity, only respect. "Thank you," she replied softly. "I'm trying to ensure no one else falls victim to the same deceit." Their conversation flowed easily. He asked about her baby, about her work. She asked about his technological innovations and the ways he planned to expand globally. For the first time since Jamie's betrayal, Claudia felt a genuine connection, forming with another person, one founded on mutual respect and shared values rather than glittering illusions. Over the next several months, Claudia and Link forged a professional relationship. He hired her as a consultant to help streamline Harrington Innovations' charitable initiatives, ensuring that every donation and partnership was handled transparently. In the process, they spent increasing amounts of time together, brainstorming programs for hospitals in low-income regions, traveling to conferences, and meeting potential partners. On the personal front, Link grew fond of Claudia's daughter, Lily. Though initially shy around strangers, Lily seemed comfortable with Link, giggling whenever he made funny faces or let her play with the shiny buttons on his suit jacket. Watching them interact softened the guarded shell Claudia had built around her heart. She found herself smiling more freely, rediscovering the warmth she thought she had lost forever. Still, wounds from her past lingered. Nightmares of Jamie's threatening voicemails occasionally haunted her. Fear of betrayal sometimes gripped her unexpectedly. Link sensed her hesitation whenever their interactions veered toward the personal. Respectfully, he never pushed her. Instead, he offered steady support, an attentive ear, a gentle presence, a reliable partnership that contrasted starkly with Jamie's volatile charm. Eventually, Link invited Claudia and Lily to a charity banquet Harrington Innovations was sponsoring in San Francisco. He arranged for a nanny to accompany them, so Claudia could enjoy the event without worrying about Lily. The banquet was a glamorous affair, but Claudia found it refreshingly focused on actual fundraising goals, not superficial networking. Link introduced her to top medical researchers and hospital administrators, all enthusiastic about forging genuine partnerships. Later that evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the sparkling bay, Link confessed his growing affection. "I'd be lying if I said I only see you as a consultant. You're an exceptional woman, Claudia. Your strength, your passion, your resilience, it's inspiring. I know you've been hurt, and I'd never want to rush or pressure you, but I hope you'll consider the possibility of a future together." Claudia felt her heart flutter. She stared at the water rippling beneath the moonlight, remembering the emptiness she once felt after discovering Jamie's betrayal. Now, life had brought her someone who seemed genuine, who understood the importance of trust. Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes, but they were tears of hope, not sadness. She turned to Link, placing a trembling hand on his arm. "I never thought I'd let myself care about anyone again, but you've shown me that real integrity exists. I'd like to explore what that future might look like." Amid this budding romance, Jamie's fate grew darker. From prison, he continued to file appeal after appeal, but to no avail. The courts upheld his conviction, citing the overwhelming evidence against him. His once formidable connections evaporated as politicians and socialites distanced themselves from the scandal. Even the blonde woman he'd been involved with publicly denied any intimate relationship, trying to save her own reputation. Within the prison walls, Jamie's arrogance and attempts to bribe guards led to harsh repercussions. Stories filtered back to Claudia. Jamie had gotten into altercations with other inmates. He tried to establish himself as an alpha figure, only to be brutally humbled. Rumor had it he was transferred to a higher security unit for his own protection. Though she took no pleasure in imagining Jamie's suffering, Claudia acknowledged it as the natural consequence of his choices. It was a hard karma that he had brought entirely upon himself. The man who once flaunted his power, wealth, and ability to make problems vanish now lived under strict rules, watched by guards, and overshadowed by the looming possibility of spending decades behind bars. Meanwhile, Winston Enterprises collapsed, swallowed by bankruptcy proceedings and lawsuits from defrauded investors. The Winston name became synonymous with white-collar crime, a cautionary tale taught in business ethics seminars nationwide. The philanthropic community, especially those who had been deceived by Jamie's lavish fundraisers, felt vindicated seeing justice served. And Claudia found closure knowing that the system, imperfect as it was, had ultimately held Jamie accountable. Claudia's relationship with Link blossomed over time, nurtured by mutual respect and unhurried affection. When Lily was around 2 years old, Link proposed in a quiet, heartfelt moment at a small garden behind his headquarters. There were no paparazzi or illusions, this time just the soft glow of fairy lights, an intimate table set with Claudia's favorite dishes, and a ring that symbolized genuine commitment rather than gaudy opulence. Tears glistened in Claudia's eyes as she said yes, hugging Lily close while she accepted Link's proposal. This time, it felt right, unrushed, free from hidden agendas, anchored in shared values. Their wedding took place a few months later, a simple but elegant ceremony at a charming hillside estate overlooking the ocean. Close friends and family gathered, marveling at how Claudia had transformed tragedy into triumph. Serena served as the maid of honor, beaming with pride. Lily walked down the aisle carrying a small basket of rose petals. As Claudia and Link exchanged vows, the gathering felt charged with genuine love and gratitude. In the months that followed, Claudia fully embraced her new life as the wife of a CEO who cared deeply about social impact. With Link's support, she expanded her philanthropic consulting into a full-fledged organization specializing in ethical oversight. They traveled together to underprivileged areas, forging alliances that provided medical and educational resources. Everywhere they went, they found people inspired by Claudia's story of how she'd once been ensnared by a millionaire's lies, but refused to let that define her. Occasionally, a pang of memory would surface, reminding Claudia of the painful past with Jamie. But each time, she remembered how far she'd come and how she had channeled that heartbreak into a future brimming with honesty, compassion, and real devotion. Thank you for watching this incredible journey of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimate redemption. Claudia, once trapped in the web of a cheating millionaire husband, bravely uncovered his criminal empire, stood tall against his threats, and found love anew with a genuine CEO who shared her values. She proved that true strength shines brightest in our darkest moments, and that hard-fought justice can lead to a life richer in integrity and love. If you found this story gripping, insightful, or simply inspiring, please support our channel by hitting the like button, sharing this video with friends, and subscribing to stay tuned for more dramatic, real-life tales. Your feedback and engagement help us continue to bring you captivating stories of resilience and hope. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.